Welcome to Italian Innovators. I'm Luca Cottini, and today I'm in the company of Chiara Montanari, Antarctic expedition leader, manager, researcher, coach, consultant in a strategic mindset, TEDx speaker, and author of Ice Chronicles 90 Days in Antarctica. Trained as a civil engineer at the University of Pisa and later in business management at the Polytechnic of Milan, she joined her first scientific mission to Antarctica in 2003. And in her later four missions, she worked as expedition leader at the International Research Station Concordia on the Antarctic Plateau, head of logistics for the mission of the French Polar Institute, and expedition leader in the Belgian mission to Antarctica. During her time in the South Pole, she developed a sophisticated understanding of leadership, a strategic attitude to entrepreneurship in extreme environments, and a creative approach to complexity thinking. In 2014, she was awarded the highest medal of honor of the city of Milan, the Ambrogino d'Oro. And in 2015, she published a book on her expedition to Concordia, the French-Italian station on top of the ice cap, comparing the extreme ecosystem of Antarctica to the complex and uncertain world of business. She is now interface manager of the astronomical project CTA, Cherenkov Telescope Array, coach and consultant in the field of sustainable innovation. Thank you very much, Chiara, for being with us. It's a real honor and pleasure to have you in the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
So today we'll examine the relationship between research and entrepreneurship, exploration and innovation, leadership and creative thinking. The true object of our conversation is the impresa, an Italian word which means both company and adventurous feat. In your case, your impresa in Antarctica is a metaphor of the impresa, which is life itself, as you also stress by defining yourself as life explorer. So what does the Antarctica mindset consist of? What is it for you?
The Antarctic mindset is the synthesis of my experience in Antarctica. I had been there, as you said, 5 times, and I had been going through very hard times, I would say. Antarctica might be seen as a metaphor of the current world, because when you go to a station there, you have for example, Concordia, you have 80 people. They come from different backgrounds, different area, different places. They have to work together in a multiplicity of projects. They have to deliver that in 3 months, because of course the short period of the summer in Antarctica, and with all the resources you have in the field, so you can't expect to have any replacement on anything, and then you have to do it in this extreme environment, which is I would like to stress that this is not hostile, as many people tell me. Antarctica is just Antarctica, and we are going there. So we are going to a very unknown environment and very extreme for us. And so we have to face many unexpected events. So the Antarctic mindset is the approach that you can develop when you are exposed to many unexpected and really dangerous, let's say, unexpected events. There you don't have the possibility to make I would say some mistake, but not too many. And you have to be quick in decision making. You have to be, very effective in team building, and very effective in delivering projects despite everything. So how can we make that? And the answer is the Antarctic mindset, in my opinion.
So on several occasions you have been leader of international research projects, as you said, but how do you build agile and solid teams in the kingdom of uncertainty? And how do you maintain both rigor and flexibility in such an extreme environment? And also, if I may, what does a successful exploration consist of?
First of all, how can we maintain this mindset of flexibility within the team, at the same time some kind of, let's say, obedience to the rules? I'm thinking especially for safety. So we have many safety procedures. And of course, you have to maintain these rules and to follow them. And at the same time, you have to be flexible and autonomous. Because, of course, we have a bunch of scenarios that we have in our mind when we go there. So, and through this scenario, we make these rules, these safety procedures. But then we face the unexpected. So you have to be able to adapt and to react very quickly and very effectively. And this is a very, very difficult thing to do, especially as an expedition leader, because you are responsible for the safety of the team and the delivery of the projects. And you have a variety of diverse people. So you have to find a way of leading all these impresa, including the team. And I mean, I had been experimenting many models during my experience. As you said, I had been going through a training in management, but what I found most useful was complexity theory, and especially the complexity science that has been developed by Edgar Morin. And this helped me very much because this has an approach, a kind of philosophy of science approach, and it's also based on anthropology. So it's a way of dealing with human beings that can help you. But I didn't still answer to your question because you want to know how. But this was very important to tell that I don't have a formula. It doesn't exist, a formula. But what you can do is, as a leader, for example, you can transform yourself and you can expand your possibilities. So let's say when I started, I had one or two models of leadership in my mind, and I started with them. And then while working, I had realized that any models can't work. But the more you know, the better you can adapt, because you can move from one model to another. And the real secret is when you become able to move from one model to another. I give you an example, a very short one. I had an experience in the last expedition. I was the expedition leader of the Belgian group. And in that time, I had been, I think it was my fifth expedition there. So I thought I had quite an experience. I had been there and involved into the Antarctic environment for 15 years. So I thought, okay, I'm an expert here. And I had developed my flexible way of leadership, which is more, let's say, they use the word servant leadership. They used to say that it's something that you try to involve the team, you coordinate them, you don't give orders to them, of course, you involve them, you integrate their point of view and so on. But that time, half of my team was made of people from the army, and they were not used to that. They were not happy to have this kind of leader, and they didn't want me, basically. So I had to develop another way of dealing with that. And I swear, I was really not in a comfort zone in giving orders. When I'm in Antarctica, I'm the head of people who have such a wide experience. And of course, all of them are professionals. And of course, I don't have their skills. Of course not. It's a multidisciplinary team. And so I was really pushed out of my comfort zone to change the style of leadership. But when I did it, and I can't tell you because it's a long story how I did it, but when you're pushed out, then you understand that you were limiting yourself to the models you knew. And this is basically the very lesson from Antarctica, since it pushes you, because you have the urgency, you are pushed out of your comfort zone, then you have the possibility to develop other strategies, other way of thinking, other models, and so on. And this is the most important findings, and this is the most important experience and the secret of exploring. Once you get that the secret is the change, the ability, the fact that you have learned to change, then you start to enjoy the exploration. And I think that this is something, since we are very confronted with unexpected events now, this is something that we can have the opportunity to learn.
And definitely you point out the idea of entrepreneurship as a form of experiential learning and as a self-adjusting learning,
Yes.
knowledge of reality. And also you point to the experience of, we might use the word crisis as not an obstacle, but rather as an opportunity. A crisis comes from to judge, to select, as a situation that forces us to prioritize, to select, and to find out also other possibilities. I like the idea of leadership as a form of understanding of reality that implies the sum of all possibilities, which is actually what literature is. Now, in your TED Talks, you present two meaningful situations of life in Antarctica. the vastness of a 360-degree horizon, which marks the division of ice and sky, and the so-called whiteout, or rather the blurring of Earth and sky in a white fog, preventing any form of orientation except for the GPS signal. Entrepreneurship really reflects those situations as both an ultimate call or adventure to reach that unknown horizon, and also as the stepping into the uncharted land, which might also take a scary form. How do you manage the unforeseen as a resource and not as a problem? And how do you maintain leadership for yourself in extreme situations?
Leadership of yourself is always very important in every situation, and especially in that one. As you can imagine, I had been going through many training courses to go to Antarctica before, during the various years of experiences there. Every time I had these coaches telling me, Chiara, you don't have to be negative. There are no obstacles, just opportunity. So I said, okay, yes, I got it. Then I went to Antarctica. Then, in front of the crevasse, I was like, Chiara, don't think negative. It's an opportunity. But I swear it was very, very difficult, of course, to think of the opportunity. So what I'm trying to make, for example, with the Antarctic mindset is to explain what is the opportunity, to give people tools to understand that it's really an opportunity. Because, of course, otherwise, it's quite a human feeling to feel scared or depressed in front of something that appears as obstacles. And then if you think, okay, it's not an obstacle, I have to see it as an opportunity, then you feel guilty on top of that because you have the problem. And then you feel guilty because you can't see the opportunity and you see only the negative part. So what I'm trying to give people is really trying to give them instrument to see the opportunity through the obstacle. And actually, the opportunity is seen when you get an understanding of what this obstacle is. Actually, the obstacle is nothing. I mean, it's not there. It's just an object there. It's like an unexpected event over your road is there. And okay, you see it as an obstacle. Why? Because you have a plan, because you have done a plan, you have a strategy, you have expectations to reality. So you project expectations, and that's why this unexpected thing can be an obstacle. But actually, you are doing it yourself. I mean, how can reality enter in your mentality so that you can make a project and you can make expectation? I mean, it's absurd. So the problem is the fact that we have this illusion of control. We are not in control, but the understanding that we are not in control can free us to creativity. And this is very important to know, because when we make a plan and we decide, okay, let's go for a plan, let's say that reality will be like that, and then it happens something and you see the obstacles and then you can't go through and then you get depressed and so on and so on. But then the problem is that if you are taken by this vision, your perspective is limited. So you can't see all the other possibility in front of you. So what is very difficult is to find a way to stay in between planning and non-planning. This is what we learn in Antarctica, because of course you can't go to Antarctica without any planning because you are going to die. So what I'm trying to say here is not that you have to improvise your life. This is like, we have a mentality, so why don't you? It's a tool, so why don't we use it? But at the same time, you don't have to make a confusion between your plan and reality. Your plan is just a part of the possibility of reality. Once you really get that, then you see the unexpected event like something that happened. And since you are not attached to your plan anymore, you have done it with all your heart. But then when something happened and you can't do it, you are free to look in another direction or even in the same direction, but in another way, but through another path. This is really the understanding that I'm trying to share with the people from the company and people in general, because I really think that this is very, very important, because we are now building our future. And in these crisis times, we really have the opportunity to do something nice.
Well, thank you for this. It's actually the adventure of all the great heroes that are dear to us because they face pressure, they face difficulties, they face obstacles, and they teach us in a sort of virtual reality. They give us a way to experience situations where we're placed under pressure and where someone was able to keep in mind the goal and see the difficulty as part of a path, as part of the adventure of the impresa. And also, as you were talking, I had in mind an episode that I discussed with you on Walter Bonatti, the great mountaineer, Italian mountaineer, who was able to conquer really peaks, the world's tallest mountains, not by virtue of just an adventurous spirit, but by thorough preparation. The thorough preparation of his missions, however, did not prevent him from encountering unforeseen events that he had to deal with. And those events are those that make the impresa, the business of doing it, an impresa, something that is adventurous and memorable. So something that leaves a sign that contains a substance and a meaning. Now, in your personal webpage, you quote Roberto Bolaño's phrase, "Every 100 meters, the world changes." And as we described, your life certainly embraces such philosophy of dynamism and flexibility and constant change. In your presentations, however, you often focus on the absolute silence, stillness, or radical otherness of the Antarctic environment. So how do you maintain a balance between the necessary mutability of business and the need to nurture your identity, both personal and cultural? How does coaching or writing help you to recover a sense of your own self?
Actually, I'm also practicing yoga and meditation. This helped me a lot. And actually, this is a consequence of Antarctica. I went through the yoga path because when I went to Antarctica, on top of the ice cap, there was this silence. It's not silence of the ears, it's really silence of everything. Silence of the ice, silence of smell, because everything is frozen, so you don't have any smell at all. And this experience is like a really experience of nothingness. And an experience of nothingness projects you inside yourself. You're not taken by the outside anymore. And so you immediately realize that you have such an amount of energy, and we have such an amount of energy that we don't know normally, because our bits of energy is taken from all the object. This experience was like a life-transforming experience. It's something that had been very important to me. And this helped me to stay more, I don't want to say the word centered, because it means that you have a center. It's really rather the opposite. You feel like light. You have just energy, a lot of energy. And this is very important to go back to that energy when you have many things to do. Because otherwise you are taken by the urgency and all your energy is taken by the reaction. And we go to the things I was saying before. When you have an unexpected event, you can have an action or a reaction. The reaction phase is when you say something like in denial and say, oh no, these things shouldn't happen to me. Why? And then you lose a lot of energy. And the thing is like doing something to you in the same time. The second part of the reaction can be the hero path. This is an obstacle. I'm so good. I'm so better than this obstacle. I'm so great. And then you make a lot of efforts to try to throw this obstacle down. And this is also a waste of energy. Or you can go to action. And the action part is when you're just calm, you say, okay, that's normal. That's something that I could not think of came into my life. And then, okay, you say, hello, obstacle, what I can do with you? And then you're very calm. And then you have all your energy because you are not throwing it away in doing reactions that are useless. And then you enter in what Edgar Morin would say, dialogue with the reality, and you start to co-create with that. And for that, it's very, very important. So to come to your question, what I do for that, recently I'm doing meditation. I'm trying to do concentration, let's say, because meditation is a very high level.
And definitely this is also a strategic point for many entrepreneurs who might be taken away by the things to do, the urgency of events that happen, and need to really go back to this silence and nothingness, or as you described, to really self-care, a form of self-care. In a way, writing is also a form of self-care, of rediscovering one's own self. You didn't use the word center in the sense that like the self is a center of many interactions, doesn't necessarily have a central or centric dimension, but there is something in ourselves that contain this energy that we need to constantly rediscover in order not to be burnt out by our entrepreneurial activity. Now, in a recent presentation, you also point out that leadership in extreme or multicultural environments is mostly unisex. But you also add that in our contemporary world, women represent one of the most powerful seeds of innovation. Why is the feminine outlook a recipe of entrepreneurial success?
First of all, when I think in feminine, I'm thinking in energy. I strongly believe that we have both of them, female energy and male energy inside ourselves. Then, of course, females are representing a part of our human way of being that is very important. And nowadays, the working environment are full of men. And I'm talking especially about the decision-making part, because of course women are in everywhere, but in the decision-making levels, the rate of men is higher. And for this reason, if we integrate women there, I mean, just the fact that they are women, so of course they have a different view because they are women. This simple fact will introduce some variety, and diversity is the recipe for innovation, because of course, if you really want to have a different view, what you have to do is start to think differently. And if you have a new person who has a different view, you can have an interaction, again, a dialogue, and then you can create the third view, something new that didn't exist before. So I really think that women can bring this, and I hope so, because I mean, we really, really need some feminine energy in this world. And I'm not saying that the problems are caused by men. The problems are caused by the excess of male energy in this world.
And I absolutely agree. And I like the stress of the feminine as a possibility that is introducing something other than the default, a creative energy that it introduces the possibility of something else. And this is really the true seed of the innovative mind, which is not satisfied with the status quo or what we found so far, but wants to really find a path to explore. And not necessarily the finding of a path to explore is easy, as you described in your own experience as an explorer. Now, as a follow-up, if I may, I also want to ask you if you could say something more about the model of leadership that you embody and coach, a model that does not seek to give orders, as you said before, but rather to integrate differences in a common goal or vision. Now, you describe this experience of inhabiting multiplicity and generative leadership in terms of joy. Why is entrepreneurship the business of happiness for you?
Yes, joy is my favorite word. I strongly believe that you can't force anyone to do anything. You really can't. Maybe you can scare someone, but you can't force to give his best or her best in the project, for example, that you're leading. And for sure, I can't do that in Antarctica. I'm not even their real boss in real world. What I can do in the leadership, in leading a team, is convince people. And what is the best for convincing people? And I think the best tool is joy. In order to give people joy, real joy, you have to develop a big understanding of the talent, I would say intuition, because of course you can never understand the person in deep, but at least you can develop this sensitivity and intuition in getting what they really like to do and what are their talents. And then what a leader in this case has to do is just try to integrate this talent in a working environment to work together. And every person is different. And especially in a place like Antarctica, we have specialists from very different fields. Their personalities are really different. They come from different nations, but I mean, there is such a diversity there. So yes, the joy is the possibility for people to express their talent and what they want to express. And when you give that possibility to people, of course, the whole project will run very quickly. So I really think that joy is a recipe for building something effective, nice, and beautiful.
Well, thank you. And in a way, joy coincides in your words with the experience of growing, of bearing fruit, of talents that grow and generate something, which is the word profit. The word profit has a monetary connotation in our world, but it actually comes from the Latin to benefit someone. So the joy of building something is the true benefit, the true profit of our enterprise.
I know that it's very difficult to do that because, of course, I mean, for an entrepreneur or for a leader, it's very difficult because it costs you a lot of energy to understand what is the talent of a person. Then, and sometimes in your team, you don't have the talent that you need. And so you have to work out something in between. But this is their creativity. This is your joy, your creativity, that you have to develop something in a difficult environment. The joy of the leader, of the entrepreneur should be that one, to be successful despite the constraints or difficulties that you have to go through.
Yes, absolutely. Plato used to say, beautiful things are difficult, but they're also the things that give us substance and substantive joy, not cheap satisfactions. Thank you very much for this wonderful conversation. We explored the connection between geographic exploration and the pursuit of innovation in new uncharted territories, the parallel structure of international scientific research and the formation of multidisciplinary and multilinguistic teams, as well as the nature of entrepreneurship as an economic, but above all, human impresa. So grazie mille for your time, Chiara, and for your wonderful insights.
Thank you very much to you and everyone.
And thanks everybody for watching. I invite you to subscribe to this channel if you like this video, or to the newsletter on the webpage of the show at www.italianinnovators.com to receive notifications of new episodes and know more about this project. You can also follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram for updates, news, and additional materials. Thanks for your support. Arrivederci. Alla prossima.